Hi.
All right. One of the things that most interested me about Scythe was those laws, the 10 Commandments. And especially as a theology teacher, there's a lot of biblical history regarding the law, the prophets, and then Christ came to be the embodiment of the law. So it got me thinking about the 10 Commandments. No surprise there. Clearly, the 10 Scythe Commandments are modeled after the 10 Commandments in the Bible. You know, those are the laws you're supposed to live by if you're a Scythe. But let me ask you a few questions here, and you take a minute to jot down your answers on that sheet I gave you. Imagine your place of employment overpays you $100 on your paycheck, whether you work at Kroger or at a hardware store down the road. If they overpay you and you know it's an error, but you don't say anything to your boss about it, is that stealing? So go ahead and jot down your answer. I think it's a morally complicated question, so that this isn't a right or wrong thing exactly. But you know, one of the commandments is thou shalt not steal. And you just got something that wasn't yours, but it's not exactly your fault. Do you have the obligation to say anything? Is that stealing? Just a sentence or two will be fine. All right, here's the next moral dilemma. Imagine your parents give you permission to stay after school for a bit, but they want you to come straight home after that. Once you get out of school, you spend time working on a project with your classmates in the library, and it takes a lot longer than expected. But on the way home, you swing by your girlfriend's house for just 20 minutes. Once you finally get home, your mom is surprised at how long it's taking you and asks what took so long. And you say, I worked on a project in the library with my friends and it took longer than expected. Did you just lie to your mom? One of the commandments is you should not bear false witness, or you shouldn't lie. Did you just break that commandment? I'm just curious before I go on to the third one. Let's do it. All you got to do is raise your hand. I'm going back to the first one. I'm going to ask you if you put it was stealing or was not stealing. Raise your hand if in that first one you said it was stealing. Raise your hand if you said it's not stealing. Okay, so we got a few of each. How about on the second one? Who said you are lying? Who said you're not lying? Okay, pretty votes for both on both of them. How about this last one? Imagine a married man deliberately chooses his lunchtime and location so he can sit with a female coworker that he really likes being around and flirting with. He never touches her. He never asks her out on a date. However, if she made the first move, he knows he would probably go along. And he kind of hopes that she would make some kind of a little move. But she never has. Has he committed adultery? One of the commandments is you shall not covet your neighbor's wife. You shouldn't commit adultery. one more quick show of hands then. Who said yes, he has committed adultery? Who said no, he hasn't? Okay, all right. Fair enough. And again, if the question is just, did he break the law? I think you could make an argument in all three of these that the person did not lie, they did not steal, they did not commit adultery. But, of course, you know, if you ask Jesus these things, he would say, yeah, I'm more interested in your heart than your behavior exactly. But I acknowledge it can be really hard to legislate good behavior because you can follow the rules technically. Like technically, number one, he's not stealing. I would agree with that, but he's doing something dishonest. And technically, number two, he's not lying. He didn't say anything that is incorrect, but he's being deceptive. Now here we got the Scythe commandments. Hopefully you've seen these. I'm not going to read them to you, but again, each individual one is not necessarily, I'm not going to focus on each individual one, but I'm thinking about things like number 8 there. Look at number 8. Thou shalt claim no earthly possessions, save thy robes, ring, and journal. And as far as I can tell, none of the Scythes break that commandment. But then here I'm going to quote Scythe Curie. Once a year I fast and ponder the commandments. In truth I ponder them daily, but once a year I allow them to be my sole sustenance. There is a genius in their simplicity, just like the 10 Commandments. They're so simple. Before the thunderhead, governments had constitutions and massive tomes of laws, yet even then they were forever debated and challenged and manipulated. Wars were fought over the different interpretations of the same doctrine. When I was much more naive, I thought that the simplicity of the Scythe commandments made them impervious to scrutiny. For whatever angle you approach them, they look the same. But over my years, I've been both bemused and horrified at how malleable and elastic they can be. The things we Scythes attempt to justify, the things we excuse. So in other words, I think she's saying the Scythes tend to follow the law, the letter of the law, but kind of like the adultery or the stealing, you know, there's kind of ways you can kind of bend it a little bit. And now my mind definitely goes to Scythe Goddard. Technically speaking, does Scythe Goddard break any of the commandments? Again, I'm looking at number 8. You know, he doesn't, technically, do you remember that part where he lives in that big mansion and has servants and everything? Well, is that his mansion? No. So technically, he doesn't own anything, but, you know, come on. You're not following the spirit of the law. So he's not breaking the law technically. And then number 6, it sounds simple, but lead an exemplary life. You know, well, what does that mean exactly? Scythe Goddard thinks he is. You know, he thinks life should be about following your joy. And he enjoys killing people. So in his mind, he's leading an exemplary life. So I've already addressed this a little bit. What bad behavior does Goddard attempt to justify or excuse? You know, I guess what I'm saying is I don't think he follows the spirit of the commandments, although technically he does. So here was Jesus' solution to this issue, because the same was true with the 10 Commandments. He said we should address the human heart, not necessarily your behavior, but try to address the human heart. And not so much focus on what you're doing, but how you're doing it. You know, why you're doing something. What's your purpose? What's your method? And so he came up with what a lot of people said was a new set of laws, but they're not laws exactly. Does anybody know where I'm going with this? If you look on your sheet, you might see it.
Beatitudes.
The Beatitudes, exactly. So he gave this set of guidelines where it was blessed are the blank, for they shall blank. And hopefully you've encountered these before. So you're not copying these. This is blessed are the poor in spirit, theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Poor in spirit means you rely on God. So essentially it says if your attitude is that you rely on God for all things, you'll be in heaven. Blessed are those who mourn. You know, blessed are the people who feel that the weight and heaviness of life, because you're going to find comfort. And on down the line. But mainly he's talking about things like hungering for justice and being merciful and being a peacemaker and being pure of heart, which means being genuine and sincere. So these aren't behaviors. He's not telling you exactly what to do. He's trying to point towards attitudes that you should have. And then in a lot of ways, he trusts you to make good decisions about what that would look like in your own behavior. if your heart is right, the behavior will follow. So here's what I'm asking you to do. I want you to write 5 Scythe Beatitudes. If you are in charge of the Scythes, name 5 Beatitudes that would be great guides for the Scythes. You know, this is one artist rendering of Scythe. What's that? Faraday, yes. And he and Madam and Scythe Curie are probably good examples. So what you want to do is try to think about what attitudes would benefit the Scythe world and the world in general for being that way. So I came up with one myself, and it is a little bit of a word play. I said, blessed are the clear cut. Like, one of the things that impressed me about Scythe Faraday is he never beats around the bush. He just tells you exactly right. He says, hey, I need you to come over here. And then I remember one scene, he asked one of the Scythes, come over here. And then she said, me? And he didn't even answer that question because he was already clear. I need you to come over here. And so he's he says what he means, and he means what he says, and he only says it once. But I also like that phrasing too, because he tries to put people out of their misery. He doesn't, if he cuts somebody with a sword, it's a clear cut. You know, he just gets right to it. So blessed are the clear cut, for they have no mess to address. You know, that being straightforward prevents sloppiness, and then you don't have as much cleanup. So that's one example that I came up with, but I'm asking you now, try to come up with 5. Again, maybe contemplate Curie or Faraday, and think about how they are, what kind of attitudes do they have, and then you write down a few of your own. If you want to use that one and write it down as an example, I'm fine with that.
Let me help you get this computer. They all like to sleep. They don't want to work. So you have to unplug them and plug them back in. So stuff is really missing.
It can take a minute. It took me a while to think of that one, just one, so don't feel rushed. I'm just thinking about if I was in charge of the Scythedom, what would I want them to be like? Not necessarily what would I want them to do, but what would I want a good Scythe to be like? What kind of attitudes would they have? How would they look at the world? Does anybody have any others? If you already jot one down, you want to offer one that might help jog other people's minds, maybe even give them something to write down so they can keep thinking. Go ahead.
Blessed are those who wish not to be seen.
Perfect. Yeah, I mean, look at how they're even dressed. You know, they try to, there should be a sense of, don't look at me, I'm not the main focus here. Yeah, that's a great one. I'll collect them.
I think they should keep them, and that way they can use them in their reflection. Don't you think that is a good idea?
Sure, that makes sense.
Okay, this is good sign. So as you flip to the left move, you'll see that.
you guys.
This is what the IT people told me today.
Can I get maybe 2 more before, and then I'll cut you loose? Once we get 2 more shared out loud, I'll cut you loose. Go ahead. Tom.
Blessed are the highways, for they shall be respected.
Blessed are the what?
Highways, for they shall be respected.
All right, high bloods, go ahead.
Blessed are the kind, for they have no burden to bear.
Very good. Yes, kindness is strangely a huge aspect of gleaning, is being kind to the person. That's a great. All right, well, it sounds like the best course of action is for you to hold on to those if it's helpful to you in your next step. Thanks for being here, man.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yes, turn that into the reflection, okay? Remember, you have to write it a certain way, okay? And if you want a hard copy of the reflection, I have some copies up here, okay?
Thank you.
Can I get one of those?
Yes, hard copies are right here. Thank you, Mr. Holzknecht.
Thank you.